What's up, guys? I'm Eric Hines.
And I'm Chris Otto.
And this is
According to Men.
Welcome back to episode 063. 63 already, baby.
Yeah, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the tea, too. This green tea is awesome. How many days in are you now with no caffeine?
I lost track. It's been probably a good month and a half now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I feel great, man.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
I really feel it pulling on my strings to make that leap to get back into it, because I think you remember I did about like 100 days without it, and I felt incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Why do you say that? Why do you think it's pulling on your strings to remove it?
Accountability.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, man. And like I've already cut back a ton on energy drinks. And I can already notice a difference just with that, because even when you start to reduce like the milligram dosages of stuff, or of how much you partook in certain things, you do notice that the drawbacks that you were creating for yourself by kind of digging yourself a deeper hole, so to speak.
Yeah. I'm an all or nothing kind of person. So when it comes to removing something, I've never had a good experience with trying to taper it down.
1 foot in the door, 1 foot out.
Exactly. Yeah. And I remember my dad told me this a long time ago when it came to alcohol. He told me, he said, "You're an all or nothing." He said, "You're either all in or you're all out." He said, "You can't just dabble in it. You can't just have one. You can't just have two. You're going to go all the way every single time." And he knew that about me.
Yeah.
And I refused to believe it at the time when I was younger, like in my 20s. But eventually it caught up to me. And that's when I finally realized that, you know what, because I removed it for about a good 2 years. And then I thought to myself, and we're talking about alcohol here. Same thing happened with caffeine. I'll get into that here in a second. I was making the decision to have just one. I was like, you know what? I've gone 2 years without it. That was with another relationship. She was like, "Oh, why don't you just have a glass of wine with me?" And I let that kind of convince me that, hey, you know what? Maybe it's okay now. Once I had that one drink, I felt so guilty. I felt so bad about myself, because I was like, all of that hard work that I put in, and then that just kind of snowballed into something that I did not like about myself.
Yeah.
And then it came down to making the decision again that, you know what, I'm removing this from my life completely. And it's been going on 3 years now.
Yeah, amazing,
without
bro.
it.
Super proud of you. And I subscribe to the same mentality. And I think a lot of guys do have that all or nothing mindset. And it's really important to be aware and cognizant of what you partake in all in, right? Because it could be very dangerous. It could be a double-edged sword, so to speak. And I've noticed that about myself. Heck, we were just talking about this prior to hitting the record button, is when I was a younger kid, man, I pretty much had that television glued in front of my face.
Yeah.
Whether it was a TV show, a cartoon, or video games. And people forget that we're establishing these brain roots and connections in our synapses when we're younger, and it drastically affects how you operate as an adult and what sort of vices you're more susceptible to. That awareness is huge, because just like you said, that one glass of wine, you felt almost borderline remorseful after you had it. Most people that don't recognize that of themselves or have that mentality would just create that narrative that we hear over and over again. We've worked with clients before where it's, "Oh, I'll start Monday," or, "Oh, you know what, it was just one drink, I'm good." And that becomes a slippery slope really quickly.
Yeah, it really does. And that's why, because I love TV too. And that's why I don't watch any sort of series or reality show, because I could sit down and watch some sort of series or like some sort of reality show that has multiple, shows within a season.
Yep.
And I want to finish that entire season in one sitting.
Same.
Like I've done that on numerous
You'll
occasions where
binge it.
I'm like, I didn't even sleep,
Yep.
just one after the other, because I got to find out what's going to happen next.
Yeah, that
You
was
know?
very much how I was with video games. And it was compounded because I had friends that enabled me, that would do it with me.
Hmm.
And you don't even realize, I mean, God, hindsight's 2020, but you're sitting in a chair or laying on a bed for hours in a day, like as much as you would spend on a full-time job,
Hmm.
on a weekend when that's when most of your free time would be spent anyway. And it's just crazy. I remember actually having this exact conversation with one of my trainer's kids, Luke,
Hmm.
about video games, right? And he was kind of complaining to his mom about how his mom lets him play video games, but not certain ones that enact and elicit violence.
Mm.
So he can't do like first person shooters with humans. It can only be like aliens or things that are fictitious.
Mm.
So he doesn't like connect the dots
Yeah.
in his brain. He was complaining about it. I'm like, dude, I'm just going to tell you right now, you should drop the video games altogether. Because when I look back on even some games that I really liked, like I could tell you're passionate, and you have the ability to look at how many hours you've logged. Mine was reading in months.
Mm. Wow.
And that's when I really looked at it and zoomed out and had that bird's eye view of, holy cow, within a year, I've allocated and, and accrued the equivalent of 3 or 4 months of that 12 months just to video games.
Wow.
And how
That's wild.
much would I have improved as a young man had I had the mindset and the aptitude and the adversity to put those hours into reality?
Yeah.
Because that's why we love video games in the first place. We think, I want to level up my character, I want to get this armor, I want to go on these side quests. But that's not what it's about. It's just a distraction, like any of these other vices that we've talked about before too.
Yeah. You're leveling up a fake life.
Yeah, 100%. And then you have nothing to show for it.
Yeah. You're not winning in real life. You're winning in a totally made up scenario.
If anything, it's drawing you further back as you're leveling up in that fake reality.
Yeah.
Because we know like stagnancy is basically death, right?
Yep.
You're going the opposite direction of that forward progression.
Yeah, video games are an escape, just like any other,
Mhm.
for a lot of people. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people. And I overheard a conversation. God, this was probably about a good month and a half ago. This guy was
Mhm.
having a conversation with another, and I just overheard it. But he was talking about how when he gets home from work, he goes right into playing video games, and sometimes he doesn't even sleep.
Wow.
And mind you, this guy has really, really, really bad body odor.
Mm.
So just goes to show that all of his time is consumed with video games, not taking care of himself,
Personal
not
hygiene.
showering,
Mhm.
and probably definitely not hitting the gym or anything that's going to better him.
Sure. And it's sad, but it leads to those questions that a lot of men have on their heartstrings of, why am I not getting the girl of my dreams? Why am I not acquiring the promotion at work? Why am I not getting the opportunities that they feel they deserve? And that word deserve is a really bad word to use.
Yeah, I can't stand using that word.
I try to
Replace it with
eliminate
earn.
100% what I was going with. I try to replace that in my vocabulary with earn, because that's what we earn in this life. It's
Yeah.
a direct proportion of the work we put in. And so when I hear people say, and naturally, I talked about this prior to the half marathon I run, because people will say, good luck. And then after, when you have a good time, they'll say, oh, you deserved it, right? I'm like, no, I earned it. And I'll correct them. Just like when somebody says good luck, I'm like, don't need it.
Yeah.
I got God.
You deserve nothing, and you're entitled to nothing. You earn everything.
100%.
And that's the way that I've started to approach life when it comes to my workouts. Like that's why I train fasted. I feel like I have to earn my food, earn my first meal of the day.
I love it. Yeah.
And I got to earn my warm shower, so I take a cold shower first. When you start to live life in that capacity, it's such a more robust life that way.
Yeah, and you're compounding your growth too by intentionally challenging yourself in those micro moments in a day.
Yeah.
imagine what those 5, 6 decisions in that one day done consistently over a 60, 90, 120 day period look
Hmm.
like versus the one individual who doesn't challenge themselves at all and usually marks the day as an L
Yep.
because they didn't accomplish what they thought they wanted to do. In reality, it wasn't even a priority to their forward momentum,
Right.
you know?
It's powerful.
Yeah, so good, man. And I would treat, I never framed it that way, but I have certain things throughout the day that I treat the exact same way.
Hmm.
It's the ability to maintain your integrity too as a man, because you are setting yourself up for opportunities to deliver on your promise
Yeah.
that you keep to yourself. Like that cold shower sucks, but the reward is there and it's almost instant.
Hmm.
The workout that's grueling sucks, but the reward is instant. And I think that's important to know too, because a lot of men struggle with this concept of making long-term versus short-term decisions. But there are long-term decisions that you can make in the moment that will return rather quickly,
Yeah.
right? Like we've talked about before, I don't think I've ever done a hard workout where, yeah, I might have initially felt like crap, like right after, but give it like 5, 10 minutes. Hell, I've had some of the best conversations with those endorphin rush and the serotonin and kind of everything firing at once, you know. Um, it's powerful.
Everything's better after a really challenging workout.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is. I mean, your food tastes better. I mean, because you look forward to it more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially if you're training in a fasted state. And I'm not saying that everybody should train fasted, but you know, try it.
Give it a try.
Give it a try. You know,
Mm-hmm.
most people they'll, and I've heard a lot of people say this. Oh well, I feel like I'm like short on energy, or I don't have a very productive workout when I don't eat. It's because you're so used to training with
Mm-hmm.
food in you're so used to training after eating.
Yep.
Give it some time first. You know, don't. It's just like give it some time getting off the coffee or the caffeine. Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
might experience a headache because you're so that's wild. Think about that for a second. When you don't have something like that, you start to have withdrawals from it. Your
Mm.
body is withdrawing from something that you're putting into it because it's relying upon it.
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
You drink in excess, you get a hangover. It's because you're withdrawing from that alcohol. Right? Your body is withdrawing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then you drink again so you don't get a hangover, and then you drink again, and then you keep drinking so you don't get a hangover, and now your body starts to become in a way dependent upon the alcohol. Your body starts to shake a little bit, you get the trembles, your
Mm-hmm.
head's hurting,
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you're just existing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
You know, and it's a really crappy way to live, man.
Yeah. You'll get pretty immediate feedback, but it's that course correction that really takes time to see the fruits of your labor.
Yeah.
And I would preach this until my lungs turned blue or my face turned blue on fat loss with
Hmm.
clients that I work with in a nutrition and fitness space, because you have an individual who has gotten themselves into a situation where they're overweight and they would like to change that. They'd like to lose their excess body fat and put on some muscle in the process, basically a typical recomposition situation. And this is fairly common in men and women, but ironically enough, I find more results and less pushback in the females, historically speaking and statistically speaking, with the 500 plus clients that I've worked with, because the men look for results in a like 2 to 3 week time frame,
Yeah.
where women can wait a month or two. They'll complain throughout the process, but they're getting the work done. Whereas the man will, and I mean, it's the reason why it's a saying, you know, men will live quiet lives of desperation.
They do.
They won't say jack while going through the process, be absolutely miserable internally. And really, it's all self induced, right? They're
Hmm.
creating this narrative of, well, I'm in this deficit and I'm doing all these workouts and I'm not seeing the changes. And it's like, bro, you've been eating like dog crap for 4 years and you think 2 weeks is going to completely
You didn't you,
change your image, right?
you didn't gain it all in 2 weeks.
Correct.
You didn't start to look like that in 2 weeks. You're not going to reverse your current
Hmm.
situation in 2 weeks. And you got to look at it like this too. What outcome are you solely looking for? Are you just looking for some physical
Is it
outcome?
just vanity, right?
Like, stop staring at yourself in the mirror for a second and reflect on what's going on internally now.
Hmm.
You're probably reducing cortisol and stress,
Right.
right? You're probably feeling better because you're eating better.
Hmm.
Start taking notice of the things that you can notice immediately,
Right.
and stop worrying about this destination that you already have pre-planned in your mind when it's not even about the destination.
Hmm.
It's about the journey and you living a better lifestyle that is indicative of what God has intended for you,
Yeah.
right? God didn't intend you to be that fat bag of crap. He didn't.
Hmm.
God intended you to be the absolute best version of yourself,
Yep.
and you should be living your life indicative of
In
that.
accordance with that. Yep.
100%. And if you're not, and then you start to make those small little changes, don't expect it to happen overnight.
Hmm.
Shoot, God didn't create the universe overnight.
Right. Yeah. It took exactly a week.
but
Right. And if
but
we,
you ain't gonna
you
you
ain't
ain't gonna
God.
lose it in a week. Right?
Yeah, but that's exactly why I frame it as a one-to-one trade-off, right? So if I go, hey, Kevin, or if you've been living this way for 4 years, bud, you're gonna need to set your mind right now that it's probably gonna take you another 4 years to get to your dream physique, health, operating system, and that way the patience sets in, and that really actually helps, believe it or not, when they think that far out. A lot of times they don't get discouraged, they take things one day at a time,
Yeah.
because they know that if they focus, I mean, the second that you start focusing on really far out, that's where anxiety sets in, that's where some uncertainty, because as human beings, like, we naturally just want that mystery to be like completely eliminated. We want to know this is the exact image of what I'm going to be, how my life's going to look like, how I'm going to look, how
Mhm.
I'm going to operate. But I completely agree with your perspective. I think everybody comes from that vanity lens naturally, because that's the first tangible thing, right? They grab the fat on their lower abdomen, or they see the acne on their face, and they want to change. But in the process of that metamorphosis is when you realize that things like, oh my God, I'm getting better sleep. My energy levels are great. I don't have that crash at 1 p.m. when I have my lunch. And oh my God, now where I was like having, 2, 3 protein shakes a day just to get my protein in, I can have a chicken breast. I can enjoy this meal. And it really doesn't take long. Like, the body adapts very quickly.
Yeah, it does.
But if you do something for so long, that's why, you have people that smoke a pack of cigarettes a day that will live long lives. Not healthy ones, not great ones, but they'll live long lives because they have never broken that cycle. They've gotten their body, their lungs, and their entire nervous system adapted to that pack a day, to
Yep.
where if they literally don't have that pack, they die.
Yeah. Yeah, my grandmother, she dealt with that. She smoked a pack plus a day, and
Hmm.
now she's on a breathing machine.
Hmm.
Like, she walks around, she got her oxygen. Well, she can't barely walk now,
Hmm.
but she's got oxygen tank hooked up to her nose, and
Yep.
what does she have? Emphysema, something else. It's terrible, man.
Yeah, that's rough. I don't wish that on anybody. But
I remember being a kid. Sorry to cut you off, but I
no,
gotta say,
you're
I remember
good.
being a kid going over to both my grandparents, my mom's side and
Hmm.
my dad's side. And you'd walk into the house, and the smell of cigarette smoke
Ooh,
was just in. You'd leave, and your clothes would just be stuck in your clothes.
permeated. Yeah.
But the best part, I will never forget this. This resonates with me to this day. The smell of the fresh air every single time, especially on like a cold winter night,
Mm,
walk out the house and it's the best smell because the air smells so fresh and
yeah.
so crisp
Hmm.
because all of that cigarette smoke is no longer in my nose.
Yeah. Yeah,
Dude, it's wild.
that pure, unfiltered air
Yeah.
that is outside of that environment, you immediately crave it. And that goes right to that analogy. I think RFK Jr. said it. And I'm sure he was quoting someone, but um, a healthy person has a million dreams, but a sick person just has one.
One problem.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
You
just want
can
to feel
you
better.
can be healthy and have a whole bunch of problems, but when you're sick, there's only one problem that you have.
Hmm.
That's the only thing that you're focused on.
Yeah, and that's why I never understood. Like, I think as a teenager, I try to justify, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that has a good ring to it. But when people say, oh, life is short, and then they just make stupid decisions, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's going to catch up to you real quick
And then you're gonna wish because
in that
then
moment.
you're gonna be talking about how, man, I
Hmm.
should have done things different. I wish I didn't treat myself like this. I wish I didn't drink that much. I wish I
Hmm.
didn't. I wish I never started smoking cigarettes.
Hmm.
Wish I never dabbled in those drugs. All of that stuff, man. You say that now because it feels good and that pleasure and all that comfort and whatnot. Just all these distractions, but once reality kicks you in your rear end, then you start to realize that, maybe I should have made some better choices.
Yeah. And that's really where regret settles in.
And wisdom. That's that wisdom
Hmm.
that most young people don't have. And there's a lot of older people that still don't have that wisdom.
For sure. Yeah, and I think that's what actually, on a more positive note, that's what makes it really refreshing for me to see. I don't know if my parents ever experienced this, but I see a lot of the younger generations, Gen Z and Gen A, that these kids do have the right mindset and they
Hmm.
do have good wisdom passed down from either father figures in their life or their actual parents. And we're seeing this even in the Iron Mind tribe,
Yep.
these 21, 22-year-old young men, that are really making strides that we didn't even tap into our 30s and 40s.
Yeah, man. I wish I had something like that when I was coming up. The Iron Mind tribe
Hmm.
or a brotherhood like that, dude. I was just hanging out with a bunch of knuckleheads,
Mm.
hanging out with dudes who just wanted to party, have a good time,
Yeah, and
and fight.
dude, looking back, I'm like, how did I even think that this was a good idea?
Yeah.
I had a buddy who, for a while, I was scared to like go to bed at his place because I crashed out on his couch and he put uh, like super glue or Loctite on my sock and it had a chemical reaction
Are you serious?
and it literally started burning my foot.
Oh my
So
god.
I woke up abruptly to like literally the sock melting and adhering to my foot. And I like lost my cool on him. And he was like laughing it off, like playing it off the whole time. And that's how I knew like this dude is, that the friendship from there definitely went downhill. And
Mm.
I hope he's doing well. I hope he's still alive. That dude ended up having a ton of issues later on. Terribly sad. He's an incredibly talented musician. I played guitar with him in a band. We would jam at his house and stuff. And yeah, it's stupid stuff like that. And you look back in hindsight and you're like, wow, I'm just so grateful that I woke up to reality, took accountability, and changed everything because that's not who I would want to associate with. And that's not who I want to become either,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. And then, now that you've gone through all of that and you have that wisdom, when you do have kids, if you choose to have kids, then you can pass that wisdom on to them,
Yeah.
and hopefully, um, they'll adhere to that wisdom. I think back now and I'm like, man, I wish my parents were harder on me. And they
Mm,
they were my dad was super strict,
mm-hmm.
but I think about it now. I'm like, man, I wish they were harder on me because that would have probably whooped my butt into shape to. But then you can also think back to like, man, then I wouldn't be where I'm at now if it wasn't for
Yep.
everything that I did go through. So you kind of
Mm,
have that
It's a dichotomy.
Yeah, that's that dichotomy
Because
there. You're
where is
like,
that compassion going to come into play,
hmm,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. On the way here, man, I was listening to, and I've talked about this with you before, but how music back then just hit different.
So did movie. I was just thinking about when we were talking about TV and movies. I had a thought pop into my head, but yeah, music is today. It's I don't know. It's garbage, man.
I
There's
don't,
not a whole lot that I listen to that I enjoy listening to,
right.
other than some of the stuff that Pamela plays, like some Latin music that I enjoy.
That's nice.
Yeah, but 80s music, man, is
Yeah.
that's where it
If
is.
I'm not listening to some format of Christian or worship music,
Hmm.
I'm either listening to, I honestly, it's anything from the 40s to the 80s.
Really?
Yeah. As of recent, you get like Spotify, they'll make some cool radio curations with AI and stuff based on a couple songs you listen to.
Hmm.
And I got this one. It's called one of my daily mixes. It's got like Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole,
Oh yeah, wow.
Bing
I
Crosby,
love some Frank, man.
Ella Fitzgerald, and it's just, I mean, timeless, man. Well, there's no brass in any songs today,
Yeah.
right? You get those trumpets blaring in the background
Hmm.
and really good vibrato in the vocals, and everything's just pure, man. Because even a lot of that stuff reconstructed audio from mono to stereo. It's just it comes through so pure.
Yeah.
You could hear every ounce of character in the individual singing. And like even, some of the lyrics too is just like super impactful analogies and stuff
Hmm.
on life advice,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Absolutely. Like relationships. So, dude,
100%.
totally different. Listening to music back, like say in the 60s, 70s, 80s,
Hmm.
in the lyrics and how they talk about relationships and things of that nature,
Yeah,
and the way that relationships are talked about now.
today.
Completely different.
Yeah, it doesn't even hold a candle.
Now it's so vulgar now.
Yeah.
It's no wonder kids are growing up so effed up
Hmm.
because they're all of this music that they're listening to, the video games that they're playing, it's poison in their minds, man.
Yeah. And it's cool too how like music will take us back to certain moments and certain scenes in our life, or we'll
Hmm.
create ones. Like anytime I listen to some songs like man, like Come Fly With Me,
Hmm.
right? I'm like picturing myself walking down the streets of an early Chicago in a suit with my hat, get
Hell
the
yeah.
fedora on, could
Yep.
you imagine? I mean, 50s, 60s, man, that was like the ultimate time period of masculine men because you just didn't have any of these distractions and everything. Everybody knew their roles and responsibilities, and that was before Vietnam. But I mean, we still were kind of in and out of wars throughout that time period. But a lot of things were just booming,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it makes me just wish that I grew up in a different time period sometimes. But then, looking again at things more benevolently, I'm grateful for growing up in the 90s because there's different times too where I look back in nostalgia of like, things I did my younger years. We think about how simple times were even then,
Hmm.
right? Even in like the early 2000s. And I'm sure, and I'm hopeful that another 20 years from now, we'll still look back even on these moments because right now when we're in it, we think this is man, these times, could be so much better, right?
Yeah.
And then we look back and like, oh man, we had it so good back then.
And that's the cycle of life, man.
100%.
Everybody has those conversations with themselves. People hundreds of years ago, they were probably saying how the generations before them or
Hmm.
the generation now, it's definitely not like it used to be.
Back in
Men are
my day.
men are so weak today. They were
Yeah.
probably having those same
Oh,
conversations, but it's
100%.
it's probably ridiculously more frequent now
Yeah,
than because just the huge gap between
that's it.
where men are today and what they used to be.
Yeah. So let's talk about that gap real quick because this is probably one of the most critical pieces that men need to get through their thick skulls is that gap is a huge advantage.
Yeah.
right? Like if you actually take control of your life, you focus on that avatar of who you want to be, who you don't want to be,
Right.
and you really compound interest of days in and days out of those small little micro wins, you're going to be so far ahead of every other person who was at your in the same playing field or at your same level, because they're not focusing on any of that, right? There's no middle ground.
Yeah.
Almost like there's almost no middle class anymore. You're either like poor or you're in the elite class.
Yeah. You either have or have not. What would you say to somebody who is struggling to figure out who they want to be? Like they have no clue, because you got a lot of younger guys that are just completely lost. They're
Mm-hmm.
clueless. They
Mm-hmm.
have no idea what the best version of them, and this is me in my 20s, they have no idea what the best version of themselves looks like, or they're not even thinking about what the best version of themselves looks like. What would you say to a guy like that who has no clue?
Yeah. Haven't done enough.
Yeah.
You haven't done enough. You should be trying everything and anything. And that's the biggest problem with my generation and the generations after us is we don't start. We get wrapped up in paralysis by analysis. Starting can be hard, but especially like hell, I saw right before we hopped on, our buddy Will. He said in a status, he said, starting a business is easy. It's growing the business. It's maintaining the
Mm-hmm.
business. So many people have given this false impression that you have to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
Nobody has it all figured out.
Absolutely
So
not.
it's the same advice that I give to a young man who's deciding on whether he wants to start his own business or go to college or what he wants to do. What's my purpose? What job should I have? Dude, you should just be trying everything
Yeah.
and seeing what you're passionate about, because you're not going to connect the dots right away. That work has to be put in. And it's no different than the belief, right? The belief behind what you're doing. Sometimes the reps just have to happen so that you can feel that confidence and understand, oh, I didn't see this little side path over here. It's still forward, but hey, maybe I like this. Or, maybe you've been going down this main path for a long time and you finally are taking accountability and realizing that that's not for you, that you don't actually enjoy doing it. You're just good at it.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between being good at something and truly loving what you're doing.
Yeah. And it's very difficult to figure out who you want to be when you're
Mhm.
distracted by so many different things.
Preach.
And that's the challenging part for a lot of guys, is because they don't realize these distractions are destroying them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you got to get brutally honest with yourself when it comes to what is distracting you. You can walk into the gym and that can be a distraction for a lot of people. You go to one of these big box gyms and all you're concerned about is chasing tail. You can't even get your workout in because you're so worried about the girl in the booty shorts that's on the
Come
Stairmaster.
on now. Yeah.
That's
Mm-hmm.
why I'm so appreciative of Awaken Inside,
Mm-hmm.
because you ain't got to worry about that, man. You get everybody's in there working out and it's not completely packed, and there's not a bunch of half naked women running around, but
Yeah.
there's respectable women in there.
Yep.
And you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's you versus you when you're in that private gym environment, and it's
Yeah.
one big family. And then you got the social media that people are so concerned about. They can't get off their daggone phones. They can't put the pornography down.
Mm-hmm.
They can't put the alcohol down.
Mm-hmm.
They can't get rid of the friends that are pulling them down.
Mm-hmm.
They've got all these things that are dragging them down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they have no clue on who they want to be, because they're so damn distracted by everything that's around them.
Yep. And every one of those little steps, right, propagates itself.
Yeah.
Right? They're getting ready to go to the gym. They watch porn. They play with themselves. They go to the gym. They see a bunch of half-naked women while they're working out. They don't intentionally get their workout in. They see a girl that they have a crush on.
Mm-hmm.
They go to her Instagram. Oh, I'm too scared to talk to her. I'm going to try to send her a DM. No, I'll just, fire react one of her stories. And then they wonder why the hell they're in the situation they're in. And every point of what I just explained is a distraction.
Yeah.
You didn't get your workout in. You didn't have a healthy habit before or after. And you don't even have the confidence to talk to someone or nor the discernment to know that that's not the time and place to approach a woman to be like, hey, I'm an available bachelor. That's not even going to come off the right way, right? That's not the right intent and the energy. And there's so many stepping stones to understanding that, right? Like if you're already in that world where you have all of those vices and distractions, you're not going to be able to detach outside of yourself and see the error in that plan,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And you get so many of these cats are so delusional, man. The first thing on their mind is women. So the only questions that they're asking is, oh, well, what's the best thing to say? How do I approach this girl? How do I approach this girl at the gym? What's the best thing to
Hmm.
say to a chick at the gym? Why are you worried about that? Stop focusing on that.
Right.
Stop focusing on women.
Hmm.
Like, dude, you're 22 years old. Why are you worried about women right now?
Hmm.
You
It's hormones. That's all it is.
yeah, 100%. But you should be focused on getting your money up, getting your muscles up, and fulfilling what your purpose is, figuring out
Hmm.
who it is that you need to be.
Hmm.
Get those things in
Lock
order.
in, man.
Become the best damn version of you. Work on that, pursue greatness every single day, and all of that other stuff. You're going to find you're going to attract it.
Hmm.
It's going to come to you.
And that's why the spiritual foundation is the most critical.
Yep.
Because I look back on my younger self having all of those distractions, because we're not like on this pedestal above that.
No, not at
We
all.
were in the trenches in that exact same manner. If I had a closer relationship with God during that time period, that solves everything. That gets me back on track because I'm not looking at the world through a lustful lens. I'm not focusing on things that aren't going to serve me in the long term. And I'm locking into myself internally. I'm using things that are within my control with my own two hands.
Mhm.
I'm not focusing on anything outside of I got to eat to survive and to grow. I got to tax my body so that it can grow, right? Uncomfortability leads to that growth. And I'm just going to continue to sharpen that iron every single day. And then, just like you said, you're going to attract every single bit and piece that you are missing or that you want to enhance and grow. And you're going to meet a brother who's going to help sharpen your iron and vice versa. And that's how you're going to create your circle, your brotherhood, and everything is going to propagate itself. And you may think that you have, let's talk about the flip side. You may think you have your purpose figured out. Like, this is my destiny. I'm supposed to do this. But I'm telling you right now, if you're not locked in with God, you're going to find out real quick whether that's truly the path for you or you're just creating a narrative like you have with so many things in your life before where you're telling yourself, you're convincing yourself that this is it. If you're not tied in with God like you think, you may be convincing yourself that you're going down a path that's true to you. And you could be missing out on so many amazing opportunities and blessings in life just because you're zeroed in on something that's serving you, but for your own selfish reasons. And
Mhm.
I've been there before. And that's what I relate to when I was like in the construction industry working my 9 to 5. I had a lot of success. I had a lot of money in my bank account. I was living in a lavish 2 bedroom, 2 bath apartment in a nice suburb by myself. I was going out sleeping with different women every weekend. And I had a bourbon club I created, and mostly everybody was double my age in there, and that was like a big puff in my chest. Oh, I know all this stuff about bourbon, and you're talking with all these guys and all these connections, man. And it's all just it's just not what I should have been doing.
Yeah.
Now, when I was in that, I thought I was hot crap, but when I finally came back to Jesus and his teachings and what he calls us to be as servant leaders and as men of God, that's when I was like, wow, I this ain't it,
Yeah.
you know.
And that's how you can tell if somebody's locked in to God is behavior and belief are directly correlated.
100%.
You can tell if somebody's where their belief level is
Mm-hmm.
and where their faith is
Mm-hmm.
because of and now you have people who say the words coming out of their mouth and their behavior or their belief doesn't align, right? Because their behaviors are completely opposite.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reality,
Yeah.
right? And it's interesting how once you start to dive deeper into faith, into God, those distractions, those vices, that life that you may look back on and you're not proud of,
Mm-hmm.
it starts to chip itself away. Like it doesn't take this insane amount of willpower. Yeah, there's some willpower there, but in combination with that higher power that you
Mm-hmm.
know is there
Mm-hmm.
working with you, and I talk about this on other podcast episodes that we've had, but once those two are working in unison, you're unstoppable, man.
Mm-hmm.
Unstoppable.
Yeah. Yeah, that synergy is off the charts, and then you really start to understand what you're truly capable of at that point.
100%.
Yeah, it's so true. We neglect, and we actually just talked about this the other night at the Iron Mind Tribe meeting. Is you will know people by their fruits, right? Like people can talk all day long, but you'll truly see from the actions, the example they lead by, what they're really about,
Yeah.
right? And I think this is such a critical point because it kind of just doubles down on, you know, when you acquire a certain mindset and you understand things on a deeper level than you think most people do, you also have to realize that even common folk still have really good BS detectors. And even if you think you're hot crap and you've done all this work on yourself and all that, it, it's still going to show through your character and your actions
Mm-hmm.
if you're not truly aligned with God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a great point, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who talk a really good game. Social media is a great example of that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they talk a big game. They say all of the fancy stuff. They say
Yep.
everything. Oh, that sounds so good. But actions really speak.
Yeah, it's talked about in the Bible constantly about be weary of wolves in sheep's clothing,
Yeah, wolves
right?
in sheep's. I can't even talk. Wolves in sheep's clothing. Say that 4 times fast. And false prophets.
Yep, that's it. Yep. And oftentimes, like these individuals too, we um, we hold on a pedestal. They become idols to a degree.
Yeah, yeah. I was watching this one podcast, and the host of the podcast was interviewing this one guy, and he says, and the guy's going over his routine and how great he is and all of this stuff, and the host of the podcast says, "Man, you're the closest thing to perfect there is," and that guy just ate that up. He just ate that up. Like you're calling another man perfect? You're close to perfect? Like
Mm-hmm.
come on, man, get out of here.
Mm-mm.
And then you watch more uh, Instagram stories, reels, and all of that of this individual. You're like, ain't it?
Nah, this ain't it.
Ain't it?
Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah. You can boast all you want, but people are really going to truly be able to see. And that stuff, that energy just comes off wrong. Even if you do have it all together, man,
Mm-hmm.
it, it's usually the most humble people that really have it dialed.
Yeah.
Um, and I've seen that in my friends too. Like, I think everybody has that one friend that they've never seen them angry.
Yeah.
I have a buddy, Kendall, who um, he owns the number one uh, auto shop in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I met him through, he's in this Warriors for Christ group that I'm in, that I've
Mm-hmm.
been in for a couple of years now. But we go back to the Arate Syndicate. He's just one of those dudes that he's always so compassionate, so kind. He'd give you the shirt off his back. And I know, like, we think that about one another, but like you just never see him slip. He always seems to be on his A game. And that's a dude that I would praise from the mountaintops. But they almost don't get enough credit, or they kind of stay under the radar purposefully.
Hmm.
It's always the ones that are very cacophonous, that are constantly chattering and look at me, those are the ones that you got to look out for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because even with us, man, I mean, we'll give each other kudos and stuff because the growth that we've seen, that we've accomplished in the last 4 years is insane.
Hmm.
But never us individually will we ever bring that up in conversation about ourselves.
No, no, absolutely not. No, I mean makes for good conversation on the podcast, but just gloating about that type of stuff, it's no. And I just look at it as, dude, I've done a couple of things, but I've got so much work to do.
Thank you. That's exactly
So
where I
much
was
work to
going.
do. It's just
Yeah.
it's just a constant striving to be better every single
Hmm.
day. That's it. And what is there to gloat about? What is there to beat your chest about? I've I've worked to better myself, and I'm continuously working to better myself. And
Hmm.
that's all that's to it.
Hmm.
Working to be the best me that I can be, so the people around me can rely upon me
Hmm.
because they need me at my best.
Yep.
And every guy should operate that way.
100%.
Every man and every woman too. Every man and every woman should operate in the capacity where they're striving to be at their best, because the people that love you need you at your best. And you should be giving them their best, your best,
Mhm.
every single day.
Yep.
Striving for that every single day in and day out. It's a tough job. It's a heavy load that we bear, but I wouldn't have it any other way, right? Life wouldn't even be worth living if we weren't living to that capacity.
Right. That continuous improvement mindset.
Absolutely.
Good, comma, there's still more work to be done.
100%.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I feel too, man. And I think once you figure that out, you'll really look back in reflection on how naive, even like I do it all the time. I'll look back about 5 years ago and think, man, I know I thought I had it all together, but I was such an idiot. I can't believe I was focusing so hard on strengthening this one thing when I had all these glaring weaknesses over in this corner.
Yeah. But that's life though, man.
That's what it is.
You're going to look back 5 years from now and you're going to say, man, I didn't know jack.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, those are the cycles that we go through.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this too, man, is the podcast. Like, I'll sometimes go down memory lane to some of our early episodes, some of the single dig, and I'm like, wow, we've really come a long way, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard there was something I was reading. I don't know if it's some Jewish proverb or something, but it was saying something about every single man. There's certain things that every single man should do within his life, and one of those things is every man should at least write a book in his life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, I'll take that a step even further. Every man should start a podcast.
There we go.
And is every man's podcast going to be worth listening to? I don't know. Maybe for somebody might have get some value out of it, but it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about, sharing your story, and maybe there might be somebody out there that when they listen to it, you might change their life in some capacity.
Yeah, I think I know what proverb you're talking about. I don't know who it's from, but there's 3 things that you can do as a man to have your legacy go beyond your lifetime.
Yeah, that's what it was.
It's write a book, plant a tree,
Yep.
and have a son.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, cool, guys. I know we don't ask this enough, but with a couple of videos in on YouTube and now 63 episodes in on Spotify, we really love your support. We listen to and read all of your feedback. So please not only subscribe on all audio podcast platforms, but subscribe to our YouTube, like our videos, comment. You guys will get notifications on when we announce and drop new videos and footage. And, give us some questions, right? We read the reviews, but we also read the questions because this is stuff that we take seriously, and we'll give you an unfiltered, truthful account from both Chris and I's experience on, what we did to overcome that. And also, if you're listening to the audio only, you're going to miss out how good looking Chris and I are. So.
Damn right. And real quick, I just want to give a shout out to our brother Nate, who I don't know if you can tell with the lighting that we got all set up here.
Let's go.
He hooked all of that up. The whole production today is because of Nate, and I'm gonna have Eric. Hopefully, he can drop Nate's Instagram information in the caption below. That way, you guys can go either give him a follow, or you got questions if you want to, learn how to set up lighting and whatnot. Maybe he'll be able to provide you some value in
Yeah,
reference
if
to
you want a master class
that.
on anything related to video and lighting,
Yeah, his content is definitely sharp.
yeah, on Instagram it's at create with Nate. So it's CR the number 8 with NATE.
Yeah.
As always, guys, appreciate you listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace.